Some people say we lost our ability to focus because ADHD is on the rise. Others say the real problem is actually dopamine addiction and that a detox is the only fix. And some are convinced it's unresolved childhood trauma disrupting our attention. I wanted to find out for myself, and what I discovered was kind of surprising, because there is actually one shared mechanism in the brain behind all of those three. And in today's video, we will uncover what that mechanism is and how you can finally reclaim a laser-sharp focus. Let's dive in. And by the way, if you're new here, my name is Robert and I'm not a healthcare professional myself, but instead I share a client's perspective here on this channel. So for those of you who might got diagnosed with ADHD, or if you just suspect to have ADHD, watch this video first that I recorded previously. And if you belong to the camp ADHD, you probably know the following things. You can't seem to sit still at all. You're always distracted unless you're in the hyperfocus, and no matter how hard you try to focus, your brain just bounces around like a browser with 25 tabs open. But here's the thing, that is not the whole story, because at the core of ADHD isn't just distraction. No, it's something that is called executive dysfunction. And that's the part of your brain that helps you to plan, to stay organized, to follow through, basically the CEO of your mental operations. And with ADHD, that CEO is kind of on vacation half of the time. And then there is dopamine in ADHD. Because ADHD brains have a harder time with dopamine regulation. And dopamine is the chemical that tells your brain, hey, this is worth paying attention to. So what's happening here? Boring task? No dopamine. You can't even start. Exciting task? Suddenly you're in a hyperfocus for hours. So we can summarize ADHD like this. The core symptoms are usually inattention, impulsivity, and hyperactivity. Primary brain systems affected by the condition of ADHD are the prefrontal cortex, especially the executive functions, and the dopaminergic pathways. Predominant emotions when you have ADHD, and we discussed that so much in previous videos on that channel, are frustration, shame, and overstimulation. Definitely check out our ADHD videos on our channel as well if you're interested in that topic. If you didn't dive in the topic of ADHD before, I will give you an example now. Let's meet Alex, okay? He is a college student, he's super creative, loves storytelling. But when it comes to writing a 500-word essay on something like the history of salt, he just can't get started. He endlessly scrolls through TikTok, he snacks, and as the deadline comes closer, he even starts to panic. But give Alex a topic he's obsessed with. Boom, 3,000 words in one night, no breaks. And that's not laziness, no, this is the ADHD brain doing its work. And for people with ADHD, the hardest part is not just the focus issues, it's the shame spiral that follows afterwards. Because you might think constantly then, why can't I just do this like everyone else? What is wrong specifically with me? And that constant inner criticism wears people like Alex down. And maybe that's also totally relatable to you. So yes, ADHD can absolutely wreck your focus. But what if ADHD is not the only thing at play here? Because there is also this modern phenomenon of dopamine addiction. And yes, today our brains are hooked on quick hits. I guess you know the pattern. Scroll, click, swipe, laugh, scroll again. And yeah, it feels good for a second, a minute, an hour. That just disappeared and leaving a void of your time somehow. And that's dopamine, the neurotransmitter that tells your brain, hey, this matters. And that's pretty much the typical scenario so many of us experience every day. We're losing time, we don't know where this time went, and we are stuck in this endless scrolling phase. addicted to our devices, to social media, and losing so much of our focus and concentration. And the dopamine system is a really useful and cool thing for us human beings. But we have one huge problem today that comes with that mechanism. The dopamine reward system is absolutely overwhelmed because of our behaviors. So we are stuck in that constant reward loop. We trained our brains to constantly chasing the next hit, the next notification, the next funny video, the next 5-second burst of stimulation. We live in an instant gratification society. And this is not even our fault, because there is one open secret, and I guess you know this. Tech companies literally design their platforms to exploit that system, to keep us addicted to novelty and to keep us coming back to our devices and to those apps. But here's another truth on dopamine detox. Just deleting Instagram or going on a 7-day dopamine detox probably isn't going to fix your focus. Why? Because the problem isn't just too much dopamine. It is that your brain is now wired to expect constant stimulation. So constant stimulation became a habit, a pattern, something that we feel, need, and do kind of every day. And when the stimulation isn't there, it feels like silence, feels like boredom, sometimes even like panic. And we all know those horrible empty moments in our lives, do we? So you reach to your phone again, not because you're weak, but because your brain is trying to regulate itself. And for many people, especially for those who are sensitive, who are neurodivergent or carrying unresolved trauma, that overstimulation becomes a survival strategy. So in the end, dopamine addiction isn't about fun. No, it's about coping. Let's put that in an overview here. So the core symptoms of dopamine addiction are craving novelty, compulsive scrolling and seeking, and mental restlessness. Sounds familiar? Yes, that's addiction. The primary brain systems that are influenced here are the reward system and again, the dopaminergic system. Predominant emotions of us as we are dopamine addicted are restlessness, anxiety, and emotional numbness that comes along with that sensation of emptiness or panic that we sometimes have when there's nothing going on and no stimulation. And those emotions are also pretty similar to the emotions experienced with our last candidate, which is trauma and pain from the past. So regarding childhood trauma, here's something most people don't realize. Unresolved trauma literally rewires your ability to focus. When we experience trauma, especially in our childhoods, our nervous systems learned one thing above all else, and that is the world isn't safe. So what happens exactly there? When you learn that, your brain stops prioritizing long-term goals, curiosity, or deep work, and instead it becomes hyper-focused on one thing: survival. And this shows up usually in at least two ways. The first one is hypervigilance. Hypervigilance sounds complicated, but it is just a state you might be in if you're scanning for danger. And when you are in that state, you do that all the time, especially in social situations where you learned in contact with your caregivers that the world is not safe and other people are not safe. When you have that state, every noise, every tone of voice, every unread text message feels like a potential threat. And to make that more understandable and relatable, I want to walk through an example again. So, now imagine with me, you went on a date yesterday with someone, and that date was amazing. Today, you have to work again, so this morning. Yesterday, after that date, you laid in your bed, you felt the butterflies in your tummy, you were happy, everything felt great, felt full of love, and you just sent this one last text message. Something simple, but also something a little vulnerable. You sent, "Had a really nice evening," with that heart emoji. So you open up, you said, "Oh, it was lovely, had a great time." And the next morning, you wake up but nothing. You have no reply on your phone. Then 10 minutes go by, you get up, 30 minutes, you get dressed, 1 hour, you go to the bathroom, you have breakfast, already having some stomach pain because you feel that it's weird that you didn't get a message back and you're frustrated and anxious. Still no reply. So you go to work, you check your phone again and again and again, waiting for that message. And suddenly your brain is spiraling. Did I say too much with that message? Are they losing interest? Was it the heart emoji? I knew it, I'm too much. I ruin everything every time. You can't concentrate on your work at all. You even feel a little sick. You start replaying every part of yesterday's date all over. One message that haven't been replied to yet. And that's hypervigilance. You're on that anxious state, constantly scanning your environment. You're hyper-focused on just getting an answer here in that scenario, because that answer would give you again that boost of clarity and that focus again, because it would remove that anxiety. And your nervous system in that state is not just waiting, it's bracing for rejection, for abandonment, for the past to repeat itself. Because as a child, you probably already experienced a similar scenario of someone maybe abandoned you, someone that was pretty close to you. And this scenario, even if it sounds so subtle, it's absolutely real, even if nothing bad has happened yet. And how are you supposed to concentrate on a spreadsheet at work when your nervous system thinks you're still in the middle of an emotional war here? But hypervigilance is not the only symptom of complex trauma that makes us losing our focus. There is another one, and this one is even worse, okay? It's called the freeze state. With the freeze state, we got robbed a lot of focus, because the freeze state is when the overwhelm even gets too much, when your brain just shuts down. And the freeze state is a state of the central nervous system. It's designed to protect us. And you know that you're in the freeze state when you can identify with the following scenario here. So again, get back to the dating scenario. This time you get a message from the person you're dating, and the message pops up on your phone screen and you can read, totally zoomed in big letters, "Hey, can we talk later?" If this is a trigger for you, you will now experience that your stomach drops, that your brain goes blank, that you stare at that message, not knowing what to say, not even knowing how to feel, and while a securely attached person would just text back, "Sure, what's up?" you can't even respond. You read it 5 times. You think, should I say something? Should I call them? Should I text them? But your fingers won't move. So you do nothing. You just sit there, heart pounding, body tense, completely frozen. That's the freeze response. And it's what your nervous system does when it feels threatened but sees no safe way out. So it just shuts down everything. And if you've experienced emotional trauma or unpredictable relationships, your system here learned that sometimes silence might be the best option. And that survival wiring that comes from trauma, if left unchecked, will hijack your focus and concentration in your life again and again and again and again. So summarized, the core symptoms of trauma: hypervigilance, emotional dysregulation, and dissociation. And by the way, I created a full playlist on those and more of the core symptoms of childhood trauma. If you want to check those out, I will link the first episode up here. That's the episode about hypervigilance, and the other 7 of those 8 parts are also linked there below that video. The primary brain systems influenced in trauma are definitely the amygdala, so the anxiety center in our brain, the hippocampus, and the prefrontal cortex. Predominant emotions in complex trauma: fear, shame, overwhelm and chronic stress. So by now we looked at 3 completely different explanations for why focus breaks down: ADHD, dopamine addiction, and trauma. And while researching them, I found a surprising mechanism that links them at some point in our brains. So what do you think is the one thing that ADHD, dopamine addiction, and trauma all have in common? Huh? If you follow this channel here for a longer period of time, you might have guessed it. It's a dysregulated nervous system. Let's break that down in more simple terms. Whether you have been diagnosed with ADHD, caught in a dopamine loop, or lived through trauma, your brain is stuck in a mode where focus doesn't feel safe or sustainable. Why? Because when your nervous system is constantly on edge, scanning for threats, stimulation, distraction all the time, it's not going to waste energy on deep concentration. And underneath that dysregulation is dopamine again. In a healthy brain, dopamine flows in rhythmic waves. A rise when you start something and a drop when you finish. A reset in rest. But in that dysregulated system, that rhythm is broken. If you're constantly stressed or overstimulated, dopamine gets dumped too quickly or not at all. So everyday tasks feel either too boring to start or too overwhelming to finish. Now imagine what happens when your brain is both overstimulated and undersupported, meaning we rarely take care of ourselves and re-regulate on purpose. But that is exactly the reality most of us are living in. So no wonder focus feels impossible. And therefore, the hidden mechanism tying all of them together is this one here. Nervous system dysregulation is found in the dopamine system, in people who experienced childhood trauma, and in people with ADHD. Then we also have a dopamine sensitivity, of course, in a dysregulated dopamine system. We have a low dopamine availability in ADHD, probably related, and we also have a low baseline of safety perception in trauma, which also causes distraction. So a dysregulated brain and central nervous system and a dysregulated dopamine system are at the core of those 3. And what we also see here is that it's not just your willpower that is broken. It's your biology, your whole body system being out of sync. The good news is, if you can learn to re-regulate your nervous system again, you can also start to rebuild your focus from the inside out. So summarized, our task here is to first of all reframe the issue from how can I focus again to how can I efficiently re-regulate my nervous system again? And let me repeat one thing that you might need to hear again. If you can't focus anymore right now because of any of those causes, you're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. You're not doomed to be a scatterbrain forever. What you are right now is you are dysregulated. If you grew up in chaos, if your nervous system never learned how it feels safe, if you were never taught how to calm down from stress, only to push through it, then of course you cannot focus in today's hyper-complex, overwhelming world. Your brain is not resisting productivity here, it's resisting threat and stress. But now comes the thing, we cannot just discipline our way out of it or productivity hack our way out of it. What we can do is we can work with our nervous system again and calm it down. So here are 3 possible approaches now for this problem. Number 1 is nervous system regulation. If you might not know this, I already worked with 4 different therapists and I share my experiences here on our channel and our premium community. And my second therapy was also a really body-based approach where I learned to work with my body and with my nervous system. And In that therapy, my therapist introduced me to a large variety of tools, of skills and resources that help me to re-regulate my nervous system. And those are, for example, different breathing techniques, writing techniques, but also working with my body, working with my emotions. Okay, she also introduced me to this well-loved emotion wheel. She introduced me to the concept of boundaries, especially physical boundaries, also very important for regulation. And I created a huge collection out of all of these resources and put them bundled into one large workbook for our community here. And I called that workbook Re-Regulation Resources. And if you also want to have a look into those, everything that I have from that time of therapy, you can download it for free at understandable.net/book is also the second link in the description below. Next step on the list is definitely to reduce stimulant overload. And you don't need a full-on dopamine detox here to reset. But what we need are just some gentle spaces here and there. So you could try this. Choose 1 hour a day without screens, for example, just a quiet analog time, especially before bedtime. You could also swap one scroll session for a walk. Just go out for a walk, but without your phone. Go with silence. The goal here is to let yourself getting bored on purpose. And that sensation of being bored, of feeling empty, that's not a waste of time when you're dysregulated and overstimulated. This is recovery time. And this is why it feels so weird, because you're not stimulated during that time. So don't try to go for zero stimulation, but instead go for balance. Less noise, more clarity. And the more stimulation you swap with feeling boring on purpose, the better it gets. And what I personally also sometimes experience is that I don't really feel anymore that I need to rest, that I need some time off screen. But when I do it, afterwards I recognize, oh my gosh, before I did that break, I was so overstimulated and now I feel much better. So you always know that afterwards. And step number 3 on the list, building safety in an overwhelming world to regulate your nervous system. And for that, I figured out a way that leads through communication of emotions, of needs, of boundaries, also something that I learned in my second and third therapy. And regarding that, I created a concept here of a pyramid. So that pyramid has different stages. For example, on level 2, the emotion stage. On level 3, that's the stage of needs. And on level 4, the stage of boundaries. And I figured out that we need to go, in order to feel safe and to feel regulated, that we need, especially in our social lives, to go through those different steps. And if you have difficulties right now, for example, in communicating your needs or expressing specific emotions, especially when you feel vulnerable, in setting healthy boundaries, it's probably a good idea to learn how to communicate and express those. And I share all of those things in more than 30 video courses in our premium community. So everything that I learned and gathered in years and years of therapy summarized in practical courses and exercises. Plus, we have a premium support and community. And if you want to join, you can just go to understandable.net/join and get access today to all of those courses and exercises. And now I'm curious, are you also struggling with focus and concentration issues? What do you think is the cause for your issues? If you want to share, do so in the comments below. I'm happy to read them. If you want to support that podcast, subscribe here to the YouTube channel and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I see you in the next episode next Sunday here on the channel. Have a great day.